This is Between the Lines. Today, we dissect the road less traveled.
Hello! Finally, we have arrived to the last episode for this book, episode 52. So, 52 weeks we have been reading this, and 52 weeks equals 1 year of reading. So, I started this as a selfish project, again, like everything else, because I wanted to share and I wanted to commit myself also to rereading the book. And I am happy that I did that because I found so many things I had forgotten. First of all, many things. And then I had a different view regarding the things we were reading, some even more positive than before, than the first time I read the book, and others I realized that I had changed my mind in so many things too. So I think in general it was a good reading. I would probably do this again, rare reading for a third time and maybe many more, because I do believe this book is really, really valuable. And especially because it teaches you with very easy language. It's super easy to read. Chapters are really short, and though sometimes it may seem it repeats itself in something, in some concepts and things, I think it's not a repetition itself. If you read the book, and I encourage you to do that, to read the book, it's most some kind of chaining concept. So you start with a simple concept and then you find another one that's changed to that, and it builds upon itself. So I think the book is really, really good for, of course, people who want to start or want to. I think everyone has started somehow walking a path in their lives. Maybe you're not conscious that you have been doing some things, growing in different aspects of your life, and these books focus you into understanding where you are and what are the next steps you may want to follow in the future. So it's a long life, I think, reading or rereading of the book. And actually, I found that in the afterwards of the doctor here, there it's like 2 pages, something like that. The doctor talks, for example, if you want to find psychotherapy or a psychiatrist, what are the things that you should consider in order for you to have a good experience with your own psychotherapist? Because if it's the first time that you go for a therapy and you don't know any professional in the matter, you may have a difficult experience or a one that's not that helpful for you. I have had those kind of experiences in the past, and actually in the first ones I thought that therapy wasn't really worthwhile. After and finally I could find a good person at the time that could help me really a lot with the things I had at the time. So you have to find a good therapist in order for you, someone that matches your vibes, says here the doctor, but that matches your your energy, if you will, your way of working, or maybe the therapist will not think like you do, but they can help you through different questions and ways of seeing things differently to understand or have a wider perspective about your life, the path you're going through, the situations you are in, and those kind of things. So it has to help, the therapy has to help you rethink or think differently the way you are living, basically. And at the same time, that doesn't mean that you have to follow everything the doctor says. Of course, it's just an exercise of thinking, I would say. Anyways, those are the afterwords that I encourage you to read them if you are willing to undergo therapeutic treatment. And also here the book says in the end that the doctor, it talks a little bit about the doctor, and he has 8 more books, if I'm not mistaken, and there has been a reedition of this book. I don't know exactly when, but it's like 20 years after there was a new edition of the book. And he did, for example, some of the books he has are not only about therapy. There are some, he also has a novel, so he was into different topics and things. If you want to look for it, you want to look it up. Okay, so to sum up the book, remember we had 4 sections of the book: discipline, the first one, then love, then growth and religion, and finally grace. These 4 sections of the book, they took us 50 chapters or 50 episodes to get here. So I will just mention the highlights of the book by section. So starting with discipline, maybe you have already forgotten because it's been a year. The first thing that the doctor talked was about discipline, and he said that discipline is a tool for suffering, or a technique for suffering. Because if we can get through suffering, we can overcome a situation, and we come with the tools that discipline has. We can start this path of growing. And he calls this growing, or this maturing, spiritual growing. So that is the thing that we talked about in the whole book, spiritual growing. And discipline has 4 tools, which are really simple. Even a child learn them. How to be, for example, how to delay gratification. That's one of the tools. The other one is acceptance of responsibility, dedication to truth, and balancing. Delay of gratification is when you start to realize that maybe immediacy or having everything right now could not be totally beneficial for you. Maybe it would be good for you to wait a little more and try to measure or try to get the benefits of the things that you want to achieve in a more what would be the word, in a more slight pace, we could say, or a slow pace, and not just having everything all the time, because that also makes us anxious, for example. And another thing is the acceptance of responsibility. We have talked a lot about this, so if you want, you can go to the first section of the book and watch the videos, but I will just mention some things, right? An acceptance of responsibility is knowing that there's always something you can do, even if you decide to do nothing with the situation. There's still something that you have the power to modify something. Of course, not always it will be the way you want it to be, but at least there are some things that you can do. So accept at least your part of the responsibility. Maybe you don't have the full responsibility or you can't completely change things, but there's always something that you can do. And I know that's a hard one. Then we have dedication to truth. And dedication to truth is not looking for a universal truth, which is sometimes like, no, this is the truth, the universal truth. No, you need to find your own truth for the moment, because that truth may be different in a different moment of your life, or maybe you will change your mind, and you will have to also update your map of reality and understand that now your truth is different than the one you had 10 years ago. So at least don't lie to yourself and just assess every situation, but being as honest as you can with yourself. And the last one of these tools is balance. And remember that we have been talking about balance a lot. I think it's one of the most talked in this book, because everything that we can do, there's always a way to do it to the extremes, and sometimes we tend to do things in the extremes, or we start doing something and we go full in and we forget about every other aspect of our lives, or we do nothing at all. So we have all the time to balance. Remember that we talked about yin yang, these two things moving together all the time, and they have to be as balanced as possible in your life. And another thing that is mentioned in the section of discipline is that depression is not always bad. So a healthy depression, something that is, as you said, forbidden nowadays, is like if you say I'm depressed, it's all also in the extremes. Seem like, oh, that person is depressed, or we will leave them aside, or it's like the extremes, or the others are too anxious. So a healthy depression, a balanced depression, is really good, because when we are depressed, when we are bored, when we are in a state of sometimes grief, or when we are dealing with the loss of something, or we are dealing with something that we cannot process right now, that grief, of that pain, you could say, we are having, that's putting into depression, it's like the point of inflection where we decide to go up and grow finally, or to go down and go completely into an unhealthy depression. So just a healthy depression can help us transition from pain, or from something that's really hurting, into something positive. It's that period of transition. So depression is not always bad. And the other point that I wanted to mention in this section, discipline, is the doctor calls it rebirth, or rebirth and resurrection, something like that. He talks a lot, as you have been saying, in spiritual and religious terms. And this has to do with letting die, or letting go things that are not helpful for you right now. When you are updating your map, as we talked a lot in this section about understanding where you are, updating your map of reality, and also when you know where you are, when you map your reality, you can update it, and you can trace like a future for you, and to understand where you want to grow next. So to grow, in order to grow or to grow spiritually or to mature spiritually, you need to die or let die some parts of you that are not longer of use for you. And I remember that we talked about Gandalf, right, from the Lord of the Rings. When Gandalf dies as Gandalf the Grey, he is reborn into a better version of himself, Gandalf the White, if you remember that. So that is an analogy for you to keep in mind and to understand about this dying to live. Now, the second section is called love. And we talked a lot about love at the time, and especially what love is and what love isn't. I think these two first sections are like the most, for me, the most enlightening, I could say. And I still go to those sections to understand a lot of things. So we talked that love is not what we think about love. We think that love is falling in love and the butterflies in the stomach, and we think that it's a feeling. We think that it's the need of control. Sometimes it's overprotection. We think about love in different ways. But that's not love. Love is something that you build. And the doctor here is mostly focused on love in marriage. He talks, because it's a book that at the time only marriages were allowed. But nowadays you could say with your partner or with a couple relationship. So love is really something we sometimes don't fully understand, even though we talk about love all the time. And you may have been in a relationship or have a partner or everything, but I think this section is crucial for everyone to understand what love is. The doctor says also that love is a circular process, because we are all the time growing. As we individuals are growing or walking through this path in the road less traveled, we are trying to mature and to grow as individuals. When you are extending that love, when you grow and have more love to give, and you get to be with a partner or in a relationship, it could be also with friends and everything, but I will focus mostly on couples, just to talk shortly about this. When you are with your partner, you are extending your love towards the other person, and he or she, them, they have to grow on their own, and you have to grow on your own. But at the same time, you have to grow as a couple. So it's like a huge growing, a huge commitment, and everything has to be put onto that effort. It's a common effort forwards. Of course, without forgetting that you are an individual that needs to be loved by yourself. So it's self-love, it's love for the other, and love in common. And again, as I mentioned before, it's effortful. The doctor talks a lot about this, because sometimes we think that love is this, as I mentioned, butterflies in the stomach and just falling in love, and that is not what the doctor talks about. Love is not just falling in love, or that, because that's biological, we could say. And if when we talk about love, falling in love, as we all know from the movies and everything, We fall in love just biologically. We don't put the intention to grow or to create something together, to build upon something, to build love. And when we just have this biological love, we could say, well, when we fall in love, as we know, that is also effortless, because we don't do anything. We just feel attracted to another person, and we tend to let all the barriers go down, and we think the other person is amazing, and we forget about the boundaries, about our limitations, and we idealize the other person. So they are magical, they are the best you have ever seen. And we don't think about just nurturing spiritually, as the doctor says here, the other person. We just want to be with them. And the thing is that when you fall out of love, as we have mentioned in several of the chapters, when you fall out of love, when this mystical thing or biological attraction ends, that is when the couples have to decide, okay, we will continue building this love, this real love, or we will just leave it at that, right? So actually, when we fall out of love, the doctor says, is when love can happen and can be built. So love is a paradox, actually, because it also has to do with balance, and sometimes when you have also to be selfish and unselfish at the same time, because you have to set your boundaries as an individual, and also understand that you have to grow as an individual, but also help your partner grow. So it's something more complicated than just falling in love. And we have talked a lot about love, and I think this is where I have the most I would say nurture from the book. The most important lessons I have had are from this section, love. Now, the third and fourth one, the last sections of the book, I have to say, for me, they have been like the more challenging, and still are. I am still challenging my own thoughts about growth and relation, which is section 3, and grace, section 4. Regarding growth and relation, but the first time, I think I mentioned this, the first time I read this book, I was at complete odds with a religion and with spirituality in general. And however, I have found many pearls, many really good things from the book to nurture my concepts, we could say, about religion, and also science. And the doctor talks here about that that we have to balance this idea about religion and science, and they don't fully explain. For example, religions focus mostly on the mystical part of life, or the mysterious things, and science goes to the concrete part, to the more materialistic part. Everything has to be measured and proven in order for it to be considered scientific. And so what I really like about the book here is that it brings, or it challenges, at least for me, is a challenge to understand how to combine both things. And again, it is about balance. Because we don't have all the answers. religion can provide all the answers for living, and neither can science. So it's up to you to decide where you want to put your focus or how you want to balance those things. And I think that's really, really interesting about section 3 about growth and relation. And another thing that the doctor mentions here, which I found that really, I don't know if enlightening is the word, but or insightful. The doctor mentions several cases here when people were too religious, and that was hindering them from growing spiritually or growing, maturing as a person. And at the same time, there were people who didn't believe anything about religion or spirituality, and they learned with the doctor that maybe doubting themselves in that case, or thinking more, okay, maybe there is something else that I don't fully understand, but can help me see life in a different way. Those extremes, when confronted and when they were open enough to see another light or another idea or another perspective or another door opening different from their thoughts, and there were maybe even entertaining ideas about the other aspect that they were, or they thought they, for example, miracles, maybe you think miracles don't exist, but if you entertain the idea, you will surely understand or learn something different. And on the other hand, if you are too religious and you are too fixated on certain religious beliefs, maybe you are losing some learnings that you could have from being a little bit more skeptical. So I think those perspectives are really interesting and are well handled, I think, by the doctor here. And the last section of all, grace. Well, grace is a little bit derived, we could say, from relation. And actually, for me, it's now the most challenging, and I still am thinking about it. Because grace has to do with God, as the doctor talks about here. And even though during each chapter, I reinterpreted this as best I could with different words, maybe used nowadays or a little bit more nowadays. However, I think this idea of God existing in our unconscious mind, it's still challenging. But anyways, I try to see it from the point of view of the doctor, and I really, really learned a lot of things by challenging that thought that I had. So in this section, he talks about evil, and that evil is real. And he says that there are people that act out of malice, and even science talks about that nowadays. I was listening to a doctor. She was a scientist researching people who are in the extremes, people who are too so good and so, well, we could say they lead saint-like lives, and people who are extremely even dangerous and evil, like psychopaths. And this woman, scientist, she said the two extremes exist, and also the middle part also exists. There are some people that have certain levels of malice and certain levels of goodness, and there are people that are only good or bad too, but in general we are in the middle. And the doctor mentions here that taking to the extreme, laziness is with the thing that causes us for us humans to be evil. Because when we see somebody else, for example, if I'm totally evil and I see somebody trying to be a better person or try to go through the road less traveled, to walk this path towards growth, they would want to avoid that person from walking that path, and they will be angry at that person because evil does exist, and is this laziness, this not wanted to put the effort into growing. Because if everyone wanted to grow and to put the effort and to analyze themselves and to try to be what we call generally better, a better person, then this would not occur. So the doctor here talks about evil, and even though sometimes evil is discarded, especially about spiritual communities, I've heard a lot about, no, everyone is a good person. No, evil does exist. And entropy is also another thing that is hindering this goodness, or this, as the doctor calls here, the godhood that we could have as people. So this entropy, or this resistance to work for or to work or to walk this path also, is what is considered sometimes evil. And another thing also, evil is does exist, but also grace, as I was mentioning, grace is this godhood, or this ultra goodness of people that are too good, and that is real too, even though it's terrifying for us to, because if we start to walk this path or this road less traveled, we want to go through that path, take that journey. We know we need to take responsibility, and we know we are walking through this path to or towards perfection, even though we will never get to be perfect, but we are walking towards that, and walking, trying to be better step by step. And that is something that confronts us with our own resistance, with our own laziness, with our own not wanting to put the effort into doing that. So another thing that I took from this last section, which I am still processing, so if you want to help me with that, and maybe you can put your own ideas regarding grace. Something that I also take from this section is that grace is in the unconscious mind, as the doctor says. And again, it stuck with me in these last chapters that we have talked about, that why then we don't become fully unconscious? Because if we are fully unconscious, like a baby, we could be like God. However, the doctor says, no, that doesn't work like that. You have to access your unconscious or your grace through your conscious mind. You have to make conscious your unconscious. And that's impossible to do it, especially not at once, not all at once. And maybe we will never get to understand our full our own unconscious mind. And remember also, it is a consensus here in the book that the unconscious mind is shared by everyone else on earth. So that seems impossible to get. But by taking the things that we want to work on for ourselves from that unconscious mind, we can become more aware of the things, again, of our own discipline, how we are acting, how is our own love towards ourselves and towards other people around us, and how is our reality, how we can change maybe our reality, our situations, how we can kill, I would say, our resistance towards this growth, and how to overcome the difficulties regarding growth and regarding spiritual growth and regarding healing and regarding our path. So I hope I haven't made a mess with all these points that I have taken, but I think for me this book has been a blessing. As I mentioned in the first chapter, if you remember in the intro, I told the story how I found this book, how it found me. I don't know who found whom, but I do think it's worth reading with your conscious and unconscious mind maybe, and taking notes on your own with your own words, because it could be challenging to read if you're not a religious person, because the doctor talks about sin and other concepts that are more like religion wise, and if you can get past that, those specific words, and really understand the background of the chapters, I think you can get really real gems hidden here. So first of all, read it. If you don't want to read it, go and check all the chapters that we have been talking about, because I tried to translate them as best as I could, up to date, I could say, because this is almost 50 years ago, and also I did change some, not change, but I reinterpreted them. So I would like also to know if you think the same about the interpretation that I did in some things. I don't fully buy others still, but there are really not that much that I'm not totally comfortable with the wording, maybe, or the idea. You have also to know that the doctor talks, as I said before, a lot about marriage and religion, and he's like a little bit talking about morality regarding his own beliefs. He was a Christian, but if you can really, actually, I think the the name of this section in the I think the name of this section in the whole channel, Between the Lines, is perfect for this book, because you have to, even though I didn't thought when I put the name, I didn't thought about it, or didn't thought that it would be so related to the way we finally read the book. Because yes, I reinterpreted it. I read between the lines, even though I was not fully comfortable with the vocabulary, religious vocabulary, Christian vocabulary. Even though the doctor talks about sometimes about Islam and Buddhism and other concepts. I had a challenge for myself, but I could read some things, and I could, from every chapter, extract things that were really, really helpful. So I think you could too. And please tell me if there is something else in each chapter, if you read it, that you find that has been helpful for you. So, okay, I don't want to talk too much. I think I have done a lot of talking and maybe useless. I hope not. So tell me what you think about the book, what you think about the whole idea of this reading. And I will see if I find something else that is worth reading. And you will know if you follow the channel. So have a great week, a great month, and I don't know when I will see you again. I hope you are okay, and especially if that it helps you somehow. As that's it. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following this path too, because I think the world needs more thought into our lives and into how we want to, or what path, first of all, what path we want to go through, and then how we are going to do that. And there's always hope, and I hope you find hope also in this book and in these words that we have been sharing during this time. So thank you very much for being up to here, and see you someday. Bye bye.
Stay tuned for Ulua's next episode.